welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. If you enjoy this room, please help us get the word out to other enthusiasts, and of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Lei. I'm the managing director at Sino-Auto Insights, a management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
Good evening from my side. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. This is episode number 78, and this is the last episode in which Tu and I will be recording while in different time zones. As some of you may know, by this time next week, Tu will be stateside. And thank you for the shout in this week's newsletter. By the way, I do read your newsletter.
Yes, thank you. One of the 5 people that do. Thank you.
I know you have a whirlwind week next week, as you say in the newsletter, and I guess tons of emotions as you prepare and make that trip. So best of luck, man. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to you in person and hopefully do a few episodes, not only in the same time zone, but in the same room.
What a novel idea, right? Like talking to each other face to face.
And also coincidentally, this is exactly the halfway point. So it's been exactly 1.5 years counting the weeks. So there's 52 weeks in a year, and 52 plus 26 is 78. So this is at the 1.5 year.
That's bananas. We've been talking to each other more than every day, pretty much.
So 1.5 years of just babbling about EVs and AVs and mobility. So
just to update everyone, the last time I was in the US was March 23rd of 2020. So almost 2.5 years, and we will have a 34-hour flight. So initially we went in 2020, we came back during Chinese New Year. As some of you know, my 2 boys go to a local school, so Chinese New Year is their long holiday. And we were planning on visiting for 3 weeks. COVID had started happening in November, December of 2019, I believe. And so we felt that we were safe. We stayed there, and then the United States started getting pretty bad. And my wife, who is working at a company here in China, ended up staying up most of the night working and then getting about 4 hours of sleep, waking up and being a mom. So we came back. We just kept on looking for one-way tickets and kept on getting canceled. But through perseverance and my wife's patience, we were able to book a one-way ticket back on the last day you could enter China before they closed the border on March 26th, I want to say. And
so this is something new. So we were actually in the same time zone, but I didn't know you back then.
And now we're like the 18-year-old kids, because we're like digital besties, right? We're internet besties. So,
anyways, just rallying off some headlines. On Monday was a very auspicious day because it's Baba, right? August 8th. Yep. So a lot of companies, I guess, announced big news that day. So we obviously heard about Baidu getting that approval to launch paid, fully driverless robotaxi services in Wuhan and Chongqing, of all places. So that was interesting. A couple of
let me add a caveat to that, like, because Cruise and Waymo have similar US versions of those licenses in San Francisco. But when we talk about their licenses versus what Baidu has been granted, first of all, cruise is from like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in San Francisco, a city of seven. If we're talking San Francisco proper, about 800,000 people, 700,000 people. Wuhan has 11 million people. Chongqing has 9 million people. And I don't believe there are those types. It's not going to be in the middle of the night, autonomous driving and robo-taxis. I think it is a lot of many parts of the city. So it's not limited to certain areas within those two cities. I think it's broader than that. So the magnitude of space that Baidu's robotaxis in Wuhan and Chongqing are going to be roaming, I think is much more significant than it is in the United States right now.
Well, I mean, it's baby steps, right? Because the caveat is still, even though it's during daytime, it's still within that special, ODD or the special zones, which I think are 30 kilometers wide.
Yes.
Right. So that's the caveat, but still, nevertheless, very significant development, especially not so much, a few weeks after they got that driver's side driverless permit in Beijing, right?
Yes.
So that's that. And then another Baidu related, which was Jidu announcing that capability, I stress capability of delivering 800,000 of those robo cars by 2028, in 2028. So
how do you take that, Lei? Is that like, I am capable of dunking a basketball, but it's not likely?
I think it's open to interpretation.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons behind that, I think, is because of, unlike the other startups, Jidu has the Geely to thank because, right, Geely is the parent company and production-wise, they're covered.
Yes.
So I think in that sense, that they're a bit more confident than some of the other startups. But I tweeted that I don't understand why they throw this number out so soon without starting the production and delivery of the first car.
Invariably, Jidu and Xiaomi will get compared to one another because they're driven by technology companies effectively. So, maybe they kind of heard something about, it also had something to do with them launching their new headquarters in Shanghai, right? In Jiading, right?
Yeah.
One that I happened to miss.
Yeah. Other news on that day was the couple of AV startups, chip companies getting that C-round financing, MaxiEye and Black Sesame. Okay. And then there was that important draft or comment issued by the Ministry of Transport on the guidelines of autonomous vehicles, operations safety guidelines. That was interesting. We can probably discuss that a little bit. And the CPCA and CAM numbers came out later in the week. And another, I wouldn't say blowout, but unseasonably warm, like the weather it's been here for NEV sales, still at a very high level, close to 600,000 units, including exports, right? And then the couple of new products, the AVATR 11, which you had talked about in your newsletter. And we're talking about XPeng for both the good, the G9, and bad, very bad. And the accident.
I got to tell you, they shouldn't post those videos, man. That's gruesome. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's a word to describe. I mean, I couldn't. And the interesting thing is this happened almost exactly a year to the date that the Neo ESA accident, which killed that entrepreneur because it hit that service vehicle on the left lane. And so, and then there's news about BYD possibly inside Teslas made in Giga Berlin, I guess pretty soon.
Yes.
And here in the state side, we've got the CHIPS Act, we've got the IRA, we've had Ford raising prices on the Lightning
by $7,000, right? By 40 to 47,000, right?
Rivian, Lucid, all all telling customers to get those orders and so you can enjoy the tax credits that we know you're going to get. Right? And what else? I think that's probably the most of the headlines.
I think non-China specific is Arrival, the EV commercial van company. They reduced their forecast from like 2,000 units and $1 billion of revenue for 2022 to, I think they're going to deliver like 20 cars this year or 20
Seriously?
electric vans.
I thought Lucid cutting it in half was bad. This is cutting.
The thing with Arrival is that it's a delivery van. So it's actually really simple from a manufacturing standpoint. And then Arrival, one of their core competencies is this small batch manufacturing where they can pop up all over the world, right? So how are you not able to manufacture if your key core competency is manufacturing flexibility? So I've only saw a headline on Twitter, and so I didn't dig too deeply into the whys, but that's a significant standard deviation from what they forecasted when they SPAC'd, right? Because that number was to attract investors on the SPAC. So
I haven't followed them that much, anyways. Not important because we're talking about China. So, and last but not least, Xiaomi today, Lei Jun, he teased some of the autonomous driving features or what they've been doing. It's hard to believe it's already been 500 days since they announced their entry into the smart EV game. So time flies. You want to talk about sales a little bit, EV sales?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's kick that off.
Yeah, like I said, it's been unseasonably high or warm because July usually, month on month, there was a small dip, but wasn't significant, I think, based on the numbers that were reported. I guess one of the things that stood out that was interpreted was against the CPCA's numbers on Tesla. One of the most reported was that month on month, it was down, 60%, 64%.
Right.
So I think it's, what's the word? Overblown a little bit.
Yeah.
We've seen this story before.
Yeah, we got to see a trend, right?
Yeah, especially after a quarter end, you start a new quarter. Concerning the production stoppage, it's probably a blip. But I think, again, we want to look at this trend over months, if not years, rather than 1 month. So not really going to read too much into it.
And we should also pay attention to how Berlin Giga ramps, because that'll affect export numbers, and it'll take at least a couple of quarters to kind of create that new equilibrium, right? So
yeah, and I guess from the CPCA standpoint, the penetration rates in the new energy passenger vehicle are exceptionally high, over a quarter. So 26% wholesale, 26.7% retail. The difference being export, obviously.
It doesn't surprise me. I'm overwhelmed by new products every week, every month. And it's just getting really, unless they're on a spreadsheet, it's just very difficult to manage them and keep track of them.
Yeah, and also going to the CAAM's numbers, a few things stood out for me was that July had an all-time July high in terms of auto sales. So all time. So that was interesting. And
the overall pie is growing is basically what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think we've now had 2 months where the purchase tax for those passenger vehicles have been halved, right? So that's starting to show the desired effects. And we've seen the numbers. But at the same time, the NEVs are rising with the tide, as I tweeted.
Yes.
Keeping that momentum, close to 600,000 units. And that's close to a quarter based on the CAN numbers. So this year, right, again, the mystery or the suspense is not whether it's going to be 6 million and 20%. It's how much over. That's what I want to stress, right? It's a foregone conclusion, I think. And we've seen some early August numbers based on the insurance registrations. Seasonally, I think it's expected, but let's wait until the end of the month because some of the numbers were extremely low based on weekly numbers. Like for Li Auto, I think it was 800
Yeah, I saw
insured. That was interesting. But I think from now on, it's going to be at a pretty high level. I would expect a month-on-month fall in August. But if it drops to below 500,000 or half a million, I'll be surprised. So it's going to be relatively high until the end of the year. And by Q4, it's going to step up.
Remember that Tesla is likely to get close to 1.2 on capacity for Shanghai Giga for the annual number. BYD is supposed to get to 300,000 units a month starting in August. And so those are two drivers of that 500,000 to 600,000 to 700,000 units a month number that you're talking about to get us past 6 million for the entire year, which is a mind-boggling number because we were at 3.5 million or 3.3 last year, right? So,
and what's also been driving the sales, part of it has been exceptional exports. These include NEVs. We've just seen some pictures or videos of the ET7 being shipped over to, I don't know, somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
Right. And now we have NIO, we have Great Wall, the Aura brand, and we have BYD announcing plans to start delivery in Germany, in Q4.
So I want to stress something here. The premium side of the export market for China EV Inc. is a feel-good story. I think ET7 could sell hundreds of units a month or maybe even 1,000 units a month by the end of this year. But it's the lower end of the market that is going to get blitzed, right? Because BYD is coming, Great Wall's coming. So really, really watch for how that affects sales of the ID4, of the Zoe, of the hybrids on the more affordable side in Europe.
Yeah. And the other thing that stood out was if you look at that rankings of the 10K club put out by CPCA, there was 16 or I didn't do the, how many, but there was these manufacturers that had 10K.
It's not unique anymore.
Yeah, 10K. If you look at the list, so 5 of them are kind of the smart EV startups like NIO and XPeng, right? They're all in there, the 10K club. The rest are all Chinese brands with the exception of Tesla and Volkswagen. And GM is kind of halfway in between because Wuling is, right? It's a Chinese brand, but, GM's going to count that toward their sales, obviously. But
you could set your watch to Wuling getting, 35,000 units a month, like clockwork, right?
Yeah, and then we had that. I think that ambassador in Indonesia tweeting those Air EVs rolling out the factory, right? That was interesting.
That's going to be a thing.
And up to this point, right? Besides Tesla, besides Volkswagen, the rest of the players, the foreign players, are still in very far behind if we talk about significant sales, if we talk about 10K club, right? And let's say a Polestar China just announced another CEO change. This is like their 4th CEO change within like the last 2 years.
Yeah, I get confused. Honestly, I get confused about that stuff.
Yeah, so, and then the legacy premium brands, right?
But let me interrupt you really quick. That's not surprising, right? Because the Polestar 2 is not doing well here. It's not doing well at all. I think it sells in the hundreds of units a month kind of thing. So for a domestically manufactured EV that is actually, if you look at all the reviews across the board from the people that we respect, there's not really any overtly negative reviews of it. Most people think it's a really fun car to drive. a bit on the conservative side from an interior standpoint, and I think that's a turnoff for the Chinese consumer, but it's a solid car. So it is a bit surprising that it hasn't resonated a little more in China.
Yeah, we had talked about it 2 episodes ago, right? On you guys test drive or ride a few weeks ago, and the car was fine, but the charging was a bit off, right? But that's another issue. So, I guess generally, again, to reiterate, August won't be surprised if there's a month-to-month fall, but the rest of the year, right? So, year to date, CAM numbers was 3.2 million. So remember, last year, all full year was 3.5 million. So we're already roughly at the same point. The rest of the year is basically all net additions, right?
And let me point this out because I haven't given an update on COVID in China, but we can talk about Sanya a little bit, right? So,
Xinjiang,
right? Yes. So, a personal anecdote: my son plays basketball for a club here in Beijing, in Shimao. They have that basketball court, and he was selected to be part of a national tournament that was down in Guangzhou and leaving on next Tuesday. And so we were supposed to go down there on Monday and stay until Wednesday night, Thursday morning, because the national tournament was down there. All the clubs in all the other cities in China to go down to Guangzhou to have this national tournament. I was excited. He was excited. I was going to moonlight and go visit WeRide, potential Ehang, XPeng maybe, and check out some of their robotaxi services. So I was excited. But then Sanya had closed off its airport and stranded 80,000 people because of some outbreaks. And since we're a few days away from getting on a plane, we decided to cancel that trip. And so there's still this gray cloud. And you can talk about the other regions. I just want to kind of describe my personal situation. But there is still this gray cloud over China production sales. So there could be a hiccup, but while production is still running hard, the OEMs and the tier ones, they're all getting while the getting's good, so.
Well, so far, I think these regions are not traditional, right, automotive manufacturing regions. So
sure.
That, but like we said, it's whack-a-mole, right? It could happen any time. And so far, it's looking good as far as maintaining this production, distribution, logistics, stability. Always with an asterisk, right? Our projections are based on the current trajectories and trends. So,
and I am still, or Beijing Ren are still every 3 days testing. I talked to Deep Route because I was going to take an hour train from Guangzhou to Shenzhen to visit Deep Route. And my contact there, she said they're testing every day in Shenzhen, not every 72 hours. So depending on the city and the severity of any outbreaks, that's going to dictate kind of the testing protocol. But also, just a caveat, there was quite a few people I was told that were part of the Shanghai lockdown that went down to Hainan or Sanya to vacation that got stuck there too. So that they need a hug. So
but at least Shanghai seems to be doing well, pretty normal, I guess. So knock on wood, people are out and about. Right? So
I met with 3 people this week that traveled from Shanghai. So
good,
no issues.
So you want to move on a couple of the products, the G9 and the AVATR. Did you think G9 hit it out of the ballpark? We had said that they needed to do so because XPeng, they've been mired in some negative news recently, and now today another one. So what did you think about the G9? Did it meet your expectations?
Well, so the early returns are that I think there was 21,000 pre-orders. I think it was
22A something.
Yeah.
Based on.
I think it's a $500 US deposit, fully refundable. But if you put that deposit down, you get 5,000 RMB discount on features once you actually order the G9. So pretty good deal. But Mark Andrews had forwarded that marketing doc from XPeng that said 22 and change or what, 22,000 units. And I said, we should reflect that this is 2022 and, 21,000, although impressive, it is also a reflection of how high demand has become overall for the NEV sector. So I'm still lukewarm. I still think, and you as well, we know that there are a lot of management moves going on at XPeng right now. And I think they had this opportunity to take the spotlight, but then that video of that tragic accident happened in Ningbo. And I don't know what I was expecting when I pressed play on that video, but holy cow, dude, I don't want to see stuff like that. Anyways, but they can't buy a basket, it seems like, right? They make a 3-pointer and they foul on defense and get a 3-point play called on them, right? So what do you think?
I think in terms of putting the best features out, whether it's hardware, whether it's software, whether it's anything else, I think the G9 did the job. And plus, they're positioning this as a super fast charging smart SUV. So the top selling point was that, 10 minutes, 200 kilometers, right? Yeah. So
800 volt charging station.
Yeah, the silicon carbide platform that they're using, and also I guess 2 orange chips for the autonomous driving.
Yep.
And so I think feature wise, and then the He Xiaopeng saying that this is the best, right? Like he put that positioning that this is the best, the smartest within the premium segment, and the most premium within the smart segment. The way he put it was putting that flagpole on the ground again. And
so he basically pissed all over both segments and said, "We're the best. We're the best."
Yeah, I think nowadays any product that launches, expect to see something on the lines of, this is the best car under 5 million RMB. Yeah. This is the best 5-seater, 500,000 RMB and below. Yeah. Things like that. And every product, at least on the the upper premium, they're going to have make some statement. And so I think it's definitely a model worth looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and especially with the I guess the way the screens, the 14-inch screens, and all these features and hardware.
Let me get on my soapbox for a second. So I alluded to this similar conundrum with the Lotus Eletre a little bit, because XPeng's branding is a bit confusing, right? Because their pricing says more mass market. They can be the smartest EV in the market, no problem, but the pricing dictates mass market. And so when He Xiaopeng says we're the smartest in the premium segment and we're the most premium in the smart segment, whatever, it's a bit confusing. But now he's trying to pull the XPeng brand into the premium section. And you can't do that just by raising price. It has to be an upgrade on the actual interior. It's got to be an upgrade on the actual features. So that fast charging, could that be a premium feature? I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I think the problem for XPeng is what I've seen they do. I think the issue is a little bit with over-promising and under-delivering or delaying delivering, right? So case in point, the P5, the City NGP, it won't be ready until later this year. And this was something that was marketed in April of 2021.
Yeah.
With the LiDAR and everything, right? Now it's been, right, I guess lukewarm is the word that you used. So hopefully these are all great features, but they're also great. They're great promises, but they're also great responsibilities.
Yeah.
that right, how customers, Zeekr, for example, the Revolt turned into a free upgrade to the 8155, right?
Yeah.
So XPeng needs to deliver on that point. It's going to be some time away to actually have these superchargers up and running and being able to do it, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
And they need to be up and running before the G9 starts delivering en masse, right?
yeah, and from what I've heard, has also been a issue with the AVATR 11. The response I've heard is also lukewarm because such a long lead time till the December and early next year deliveries. I think that turned off some people, and the price. I think price positioning also turned some people away. I heard because they did not offer features that some other competitors had at that price point.
I saw you saw in the newsletter that I checked out the Avatar, kicked the tires a little bit.
Yeah, and that weird dark studio setup, right?
Yeah, you saw the pictures, right? Like it was like a club. I walked in, because sunny, 95 degrees outside. I'm walking outside in front of the Intercon, right? Right where the old bookworm is, and get to the corner and there's this pop-up Avatar. And it's kind of cool, a little industrial. Then you get in, everything's black. Even the car, every salesperson or Fuyuan is like wearing black t-shirts, and I'm like, what is going on here? So anyways, the interior was Mama Hoo, and so that's probably another reason why it's lukewarm, the reception for that, because it was very nondescript, wasn't very unique, and it didn't seem super premium, right?
Oh, also they had that special edition, which was utilizing one of those what's his name? One of those fashion designer guys that work on the 011, right?
Right.
That charges 600,000 RMB. Special editions, 500 of them. I think the design is okay. It's a bit
exterior design. Exterior design is okay.
I think it's a way to describe it compared to some of the other ones. Let's say the G9 or the ES7. It's a bit unorthodox, especially with the rear kind of the spoiler rectangular window and the what's the word? Hatchback, not the hatchback, but fastback styling.
Almost like a la Zeekr 001.
This is the model that's got that CHN stamped on it. That's got these, it's interesting to have these three guys, the chairmen from the three companies, that they've become this threesome now for this brand, basically.
Yes.
This is a Huawei. This is the CATL utilizing their latest CTP. Huawei's everything. Huawei's motors, 3-in-1 electric drive system, MDC computing platform, cockpit, right?
Yep.
So this is,
and it should be noted that CATL basically took over for NIO being like the second largest shareholder. So,
and I think this is difficult because kind of like Voya, I think Voya of Dongfeng is similar to, right, we talk about these state-owned premium brands, is whether you can operate this premium level. It's very new to Chang'an, I think.
It's new and it's uncomfortable for them, I think.
Yes, that's exactly the word. And putting this CHN stamp is, I don't know, it's almost like that you're not confident enough maybe that you have to have this stamp, or looked at the other way is really Huawei and CATL's play trying to be more kind of downstream, being an OEM player, sort of being involved. So I think it's starting off. It's tough. I think it's tough, and we'll see.
The reality is, Lei, is that I don't see how these domestic SOE premium brands resonate outside of China at all.
And also the video that they showed of this AVATR 11 doing some of the autonomous driving on the streets, the video, if you watch the video, it didn't look as smooth or as normal, let's say, as some of the other ones. Let's say even Xiaomi, the ones they showed. It felt like it was over prepared and for the sake of it, rather than just showing right the footage. But any of these videos, right, we take it with a grain of salt.
I think we mentioned this last week, but I do have to give, and this is kind of an aside, but I give Deep Route props for that 8-minute YouTube video that they posted a few weeks ago that coincided with Shenzhen's announcement.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, although it's a robotaxi, but
I loved how there's this, well, they didn't have to make this woman's voice computeristic like this, but I thought it was cool that it was explaining everything. I think that was huge. So
yeah, now over to the P7 accident. I just think, how P7 and some the other models that they have this driver training, you have to go through that video and before you can actually use the system. And there's part of it that specifically says that some of the perception cannot detect stationary vehicles or these, right? There was that warning in that set of lessons. And after this, seeing this happening, and especially with that driver saying that he kind of looked away or not dozing off, but he wasn't paying attention. So is that abusing the system? We don't know. But this is, I think, the issue that's going to come up again and again. It's still an L2, and I think L2, meaning that driver still is responsible for everything. You got to keep your eye on the road, and if you don't, look away, and it's driver's fault, right? This is the L2. We're going to talk about this new regulations that, right, the from the L3 to L5, but regardless of any regulations, the driver is going to be at fault because you hit someone from behind. And that's in the rules. That's in the rule books, traffic rules, regardless of L2 or not.
And we don't have the full complete story yet, right? The driver could be lying. Unless the highway was on a hill, he should have seen the cars on the side of the road. So he was not paying attention for a prolonged period of time. But we should also comment, Lei, that it is not unusual for Chinese people to be walking on the side of the road like that. You see it not often, but you see it enough to where it's not, oh, what's that person doing, right?
I do that. One year I was driving onto on the third ring. You take a ramp onto the Capital Expressway, right?
Yeah.
So when I get on a ramp, I look to the left on the ring road. And the taxi has stopped on the ramp right in front of me. And then I got in the taxi. So I do that.
Jeez, man. Yeah, so these things, it looked like there's two guys walking around. One car was broken down, but there's no excuse for the driver.
Right. I think what you're getting into is this owning a car and knowing what to do in certain situations, right? I think that's what you're getting at. So the two-person with the car, right? It's, I don't know. It's, yeah.
And remember, for our listeners, in China, there's really only been about 30 years worth of driving history and experience collectively. So everything is new still, okay? And then with new technology, there's new experiences and new learning opportunities and new mistakes to be made. So I wouldn't recommend watching the video because it's pretty horrific, but you can't, if XPeng has that disclaimer, you can't just not pay attention, dude.
Let me ask you a question. How do we prevent this from happening again? Do you have an answer? I doubt it.
No, well, that's the thing, because if this guy gets a wrist slap, then it will happen again, right?
The only ways to not for this happen again is either the OEMs, in this case XPeng, doing something that's very extreme, or making sure that the hardware and the software that needs to work or but I mean we can debate this forever, I think.
So there's one thing that is completely unclear to me, and I forgot to mention this. The DMS, the driver monitoring system. If the guy wasn't looking down or the guy wasn't looking at the road, he didn't have his hands on the wheel. What's the fail safe, right?
Exactly. Even with the DMS, let's say it happened at the last moment that this guy looked away. How fast can the system respond?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and our friend Taylor, who's arguing with the Tesla stands, he's kind of talking about this all the time, right? Where the software's not great for the FSD, right?
It's either the software, it's either whether it's 2.5, 3.0, 3.5, or you have the hardware capabilities that make sure there's, at a certain speed and detecting stationary vehicles, right? Things like that to make sure it doesn't happen again. And how do you prevent drivers from abusing the system? That's another issue that we can debate forever.
And a quick reminder, Innoviz just signed a deal with Volkswagen Group to be a tier 1 supplier, and they're probably going to put 4 to 8 million LiDAR on Volkswagen vehicles. So more and more cars around the world are going to have L2 capabilities.
Supposedly millions by 2025. So that's their, according to their deck that they showed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But this is unfortunate. Hopefully, let's see, how it develops, what comes out of this. But sure, the only other thing is Xiaomi. I mean, I just want to say Lei Jun is a likable guy because the whole this annual speech thing is a great marketing move because every time he's being presented as this guy who's been through so much, who's been through early years of starting these other companies, trials and tribulations. So people like him, especially with his accent. It's just a lovable guy. And when he introduces these, the Cyber One and these details, you just love him. So it's great for Xiaomi. And it also, I think one thing that showed was they've been making acquisitions on the EV front. So this Deep Motion Tech was one of them. That's where they got to where they are today, I think. And all he talked about was these autonomous drivings being in the leaders. So that's a clue on how important this second half of the smart EV game is. So not so much about the EV, but more about the smart. Again, proven by what Xiaomi's shown today.
Let me give a couple of my quick takes for the week. BYD in July is gaining on CATL for install base capacity for batteries in China. And they're working to catch up to them globally as well with this Tesla confirmation that they're going to be supplying blade batteries to the Model Y in Berlin.
Well, it hasn't confirmed yet, right?
So rumor has it they'll be coming off the line in the next month or so. Hongqi launched its own version of an Escalade Navigator. Have you seen that monster?
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my God. And it's only got 4 seats. It's as big as an Escalade. It's only got 4 seats.
Oh, right. And that AVATR was also interesting. That there's that 2 sort of captain bucket seats in the back. So it's a 4-seater, not a 5-seater. So
it can come with a bench seat in the back,
sure,
or you can order it as a kind of a 4-seater. So this Hongqi LS7, it's a petrol engine vehicle. So we normally don't promote too many petrol engine vehicles, but I wanted to bring this up because it's over $200,000 and it's not the best looking large SUV, premium SUV, but it's a Hongqi. So there's going to be a number of people, a number of rich, probably Tuhaos and stuff like that will buy it. And what did you think of the Zeekr 009? Because I don't see any resemblance to the Zeekr 001.
First, I said it was from another planet. And second, I said it was Rolls Royce.
Yeah, I love how you're so optimistic about things because at first I thought cheese grater, and then I remembered so I went to Japan and love fresh wasabi. It's really hard to find, but while I was in Japan 3 years ago, I bought like a real wasabi grater. And if you Google it, the front grill of the 009 looks like a wasabi grater. And but man, it's just so extreme. And this what makes me think that these Chinese companies, premium brands, will not work outside of China because they're too extreme. So
I guess it's one after the other, or it's just become more and more extreme and weird looking. These smart EMPVs. And actually, the Voya Dreamer, not bad, right? They did 1,000 units already.
Yeah.
So there's a market. Definitely a market.
The last thing I'll do is I'll spend a couple minutes or a minute or two talking about the Lotus Electre. So they had a little pop-up kiosk in Guomao next to Shake Shack. And, it had a premium feel. Like the whole setup, people were dressed in suits kind of greeting you. Of course, I had to download an app, add somebody on WeChat. They got my WeChat ID. And so now they're sending me messages and updates. So I have an AVATR WeChat account or WeChat friend now, and I have a Lotus WeChat friend. But I liked it, but I didn't love it. And it's a little bit nondescript, a little bit plain to be competing on the premium side. And, whether performance wise, it lives up to the Lotus lightweight, fast, quick, handles well. It's an SUV, so I don't know. And they're kind of in a precarious, weird situation positioning because although one agency I talked to that I've worked on projects with, they said that the Lotus Electre is going after Lamborghini Urus buyers. And we're talking orders of magnitude difference in price, right? So I was told the Electre is going to, and I don't know what you've heard, it's going to be about 600,000 RMB.
Let's put it this way. The Electre will be the Lamborghini Urus for the masses.
Right. But do you, I know you've only seen it in pictures, but do you think that's more of a woman's friendly car that will be attracted to, or that women will resonate towards?
I think in general, females, especially single older females, will be a new kind of sub-segment that needs to be looked into, regardless of the vehicle model and brand. So we know that, for example, Porsche Macan and even some of the Cayennes are bought by females in China.
A lot of them.
Every week is eventful and busy.
But what is really apparent, and I think we'll probably start covering it a little bit more as well, is what's going on with the IRA, what's going on with the infrastructure bill, and everybody bitching, every Western US OEM bitching about how it effectively limits their vehicle.
In a sense, I think the IRA and also the CHIPS Act, holistically looking at it, it's like early years in China when how CATL, how these domestic battery suppliers beat the Koreans, because there was that unwritten rule that you had to have domestic cells in your vehicles. It's almost similar to what the IRA is doing. I think the U.S. just wants to kind of, as Biden puts it, right? We want to compete with China. We don't want China in the leadership. We can be in the leadership, and through these, I think the overall directions, I think OEMs, at least the statements they put out, the U.S. OEMs in particular, is that they like it, they support it, but based on what these announcements that Lucid and Rivian's been making, you can see And also for brands like Ioniq 5, Hyundai Ioniq 5, they will be out of that tax credit because they're not made locally. So really good timing for the Volkswagen ID4 to kind of start local manufacturing. I think it's the only one of the few non-US brands that's being EV models being produced locally in the US, right?
Yeah.
That can enjoy, but
and the much more stringent content requirements are going to be grandfathered in. So it's not 0 to 100 miles an hour in a day.
So see what happens tomorrow, Paul, in the House, because once this puts into law, some of the industry experts say there's not that many EVs that are going to be having credits because they don't meet the requirements.
Which indicates to me that let's say for a couple of years, there could be carve-outs for legacy auto, right? In order to get them to meet, it might take them a couple of years to meet those requirements. And so there could be carve-outs if there's not enough vehicles that qualify for the current credits and subsidies.
Yeah, I think in the perspective of the EV transition, adapting EVs and having these choices that you can enjoy these tax breaks, this is a backward move, I think. Though protecting domestic interests, I think in the long term, that's what the US want. And so now the NIOs, the BYDs, I'm sure they're looking at this and kind of tweaking what they want to do, right? and how should they?
Without question. Because and I haven't heard anything about the tariff being lifted yet either for Chinese imports into the US. So that's kind of a constraint and an incentive, again, an additional incentive for the Chinese OEMs to build locally, right?
Yep.
I feel pretty good about my updates. Unless you want to talk about anything else.
No, I'm good. Just a few housekeeping. I think we're publishing a couple of episodes. We're working on the some of the quality issues. So sorry for the delay. We'll be posting them, correct?
Yes.
On the official podcast platforms. And then next week, I think Li Auto is one of the first to announce Q2 earnings. And then, once we're in Detroit, probably we'll do that'll be interesting.
Maybe we'll do a one-off Twitter space with a couple different people. We'll just get like 3 or 4 microphones or whatever. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lei, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.